Eyes closed, body relaxed, slow deep breaths. Attention only on the breath. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayani Amba Tvam Anusandadami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshini Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Devyaistavai Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadaihi Gayantiyam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyantiyam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidutsura suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So where did the Bhagavad Gita start and where did it end? Bhagwan's teachings started when Arjuna said, Karpanya dosho pahatas svabhavaha trichami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha yashreya syad nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. So Arjuna started by saying, my condition is pitiable and my mind is all distorted and confused. And I don't even know what is right and what is wrong for me. So Bhagwan, you please tell me, because I do not even know what my dharma is, what my duty is. And Shishyasteham Shadhimam Tvam Prapannam, I am your disciple. I prostrate to you, I bow down to you. Please enlighten me, please guide me. And in the last chapter, when Bhagwan asks, what did you learn after 700 verses? Arjuna says, Nashto moha smritir labdha tvat prasadan mayachyuta sthitoham asmi gat sandeha karishye vachanam tava. So he says, my moha is gone, my delusion is gone, my memory has come back. And how? By your prasada, O Achyuta, O Bhagwan Sri Krishna, the one who never falls from his grace. It is because of your grace, your blessings, that my memory has come back. And now it is clear to me what my duty is, and what is that? I will do what you say. Karishye vachanam tava. That is why, and gata sandeha, and I have no doubt at all. So we can see how in these 18 chapters, Arjuna's understanding has changed. And we think, oh, because Bhagwan showed him the divine form in the 11th chapter. Yes, the divine form was magnificent, was very powerful, and it did purify his mind, but did not remove his ignorance. Bhagwan could have given him a magic pill in the first chapter, when he was telling, okay, dawai lele go, you'll be fine. But he didn't do that. He could have put his hand on his head and blessed him. Okay, with eternal wisdom, he didn't do that. He wanted him to actually understand what is his duty and what is his purpose in life. So he chanted 650 shlokas to guide Arjuna, and through Arjuna to us. There are 700 shlokas in the Bhagavad Gita, but 650 are chanted by Bhagwan. The other 50 are by Arjuna, by Sanjay, and one by Dhritarashtra. So if we need to remove ignorance, we need knowledge. If we need to remove delusion, we need knowledge. If we need to remove sorrow, we need knowledge. Knowledge is the most important, essential. Of course, we need bhakti, we need love for God, and that is also very important because people sometimes forget, as I had said even in the Wednesday study group, that they get so focused in the path of knowledge that they forget that there is also a part of me that has to surrender to God, to love God, and the path of bhakti is as important as the path of knowledge, and both have to be practiced. And the path of karma yoga. That's why Bhagavan Sri Krishna divides the Gita into the first 6 chapters are of karma, the next 6 chapters are of bhakti, and the last 6 chapters are of gyan. So you do service, you purify your mind, then you love God, and then only the knowledge will come. So far in the 11th chapter, we have seen that Bhagavan has showed his Vishwarupa, which is tremendous, and Arjuna describes it, Sanjay describes it, Aneka Vaktra Nayanam, Aneka Adbhut Darshanam, Aneka Divya Bharanam, Divyane Kodya Dayugam. He says, I see beautiful multiple forms of God with all weapons and all garlands and all perfume and looking and spreading from here to space. And Arjuna says, in your form, I see Lord Brahma, I see Bhagavan Vishnu, I see even Lord Shiva. You can say, how in Lord Bhagavan Krishna's form, Vishnu is there? Because at that time, Krishna is manifesting as the Ishvara, the total creator, sustainer, destroyer, and the total consciousness. So that is why in that, everything is seen. And last week, we had seen that Arjuna says, Tvam aksharam paramam veditavyam Tvamasya Vishwasya Param Nidanam Tvam Avyaya Shashvat Dharma Gopta Sanatanastam Purusho Matome. He says, you are the supreme Purusha, you are the inner Purusha, you are also the outer consciousness, you are the Akshara Brahma, the indestructible form. But what we have to remember is that it's not that there are 7 billion of us, and then again, Bhagwan was one more, 7 billion and one. What Bhagwan wanted to show him is that all those 7 billion are in me, not only the 7 billion on earth, but all the 33 crore devtas. That's 330 million gods in heaven, all the demons, all the other universes, other planets, everything are in me, and there is no limit to what the extent of my glory. And the entire universe is in me. How did he do that? As we had talked last week, by reducing space and time. So Arjuna was in one place in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but he could see all the universes, including the heavens, including the gods, including the lower beings, the snakes and everybody, the demons he could see. And he also removed time, because right now we only can be in the present. We can't go into the past. and we can't know the future. But for Arjuna, he was able to show him future. That means he removed space and time, and also removed I and my. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But basically, he showed that everything is in me, including you. So I am not a separate being, but I am part of that totality. That is the message. And this wisdom was so profound, this knowledge was so profound that his mind was boggled. He was unable to describe. That's why he says it is aprameyam. Arjuna says, I'm trying to describe it, but I cannot. And then also we heard last week, he said, you are the sustainer of dharma. Dharma is all the laws of the universe, all the laws of physics, chemistry, spirituality, religion, all the laws of politics, everything are sustained by you. So now Arjuna continues his description of what he is seeing, but slowly we see that from the glorious and the beautiful, the tune changes. So today we'll see the different aspect of Bhagwan's Vishwarupa, the cosmic form. It will be a slightly different form which will change. Verse number 20. Chapter 11, verse number 20. Dyava prithivyoridhamantaram hi.
Dyava prithivyoridhamantaram hi.
Vyaptam tvayekena dishascha sarvaha.
Vyaptvantayekena dishascha sarvaha.
Dristvadbhutam rupamugram tavedam.
Drishtva bhutam rupam ugram tavedam.
Lokatrayam pravyathitam mahatman.
Lokatrayam pravyatitam mahatman.
Dyava prithivyoridhamantaram hi. Vyaptam tvayekena dishascha sarvaha. Dristvadbhutam rupamugram tavedam. Lokatrayam pravyathitam mahatman. Now, slowly, we see the mood changing. So he says, Dyava Prithvi means from the heavens to the earth, and Antaramhi, and in between. So between the sky, the space, the earth, and between the heavens, whatever space is there, indeed, Vyaptam Tvaya, by you is pervaded. So you are pervading the entire space, everything. Tvaya Ekena, by you alone, by one, this one Lord Shri Krishna is pervading the entire universe, all the planets, everything, all the 14 lokas. Dishascha Sarvaha, and all directions. I only see you, you, and you, nothing but you. And having seen this, Drishtva Adbhutam, this wonderful form of yours, Rupam, but now he says it is Ugram. It is now becoming a terrible form. It's not only pleasant, it's not fun and games, but now it's getting serious. Tava idam. So seeing this wonderful, at the same time, this terrible, fearful form of Lord of you, Lokatrayam, three lokas. So three lokas means this earth, this universe, what visible universe, heavens, and the lower worlds, the hells. Pravyathitam, all the three worlds are fearful. O Mahatman, O great Lord, seeing this terrible form of yours, everybody is afraid. So let us see a little bit. So as we said, by pervading, what it means is that there was nothing outside Bhagwan, even though in the beginning they described, he was holding weapons, and there's garlands, and then there is all these other gods and these demons and snakes. Everything is him. Everything is that one appearing as many, and that one consciousness pervades everything. So Arjuna, because of the divine vision given by Bhagwan, is able to see everything in one, the whole universe in one. You and I, we see the differences of, oh, this one is, I like this one, I don't like this one, belongs to my religion, my church, my community, my race. But the ability to see oneness is there in these great souls. These great Mahatmas are able to do that. Arjuna was given that divine vision by the Lord himself. So he could see everything pervaded. And all these weapons and all these things which he was holding, they were all in him. But there is a mixture. There is a mixture of wonder, and then there is fear. Why is there fear? Why is the Arjuna afraid? Because slowly the vision is changing, as we will see in the next few verses. He sees fire coming out of his mouth, fire coming out of his eyes, and so a lot of fearful things will be coming. But here, the point that I wanted to make is that there is a beautiful synthesis between religion and spirituality, even though we think spirituality is separate. I mean, spirituality and religion is one, and science is something separate. So we think it's scientific age. We don't need to believe all these, superstitions and God appearing. We are in the age of science. We don't believe in all this. And it's becoming fashionable among youngsters not to believe in God. If you talk to your children, most of them will say that we don't believe in God, or there is no God, or, this is all old-fashioned thinking. But we see a beautiful synthesis of science and spirituality in the life of Einstein. Einstein himself, even though was the greatest scientist of his time, became a firm believer in the higher power. He said all this physical beauty that I am able to see could not have been done just by accident. There has to be a divine power. Also, there was a great scientist called Lemaitre, Lemaitre, was a Belgian priest who also was a great scientist, mathematician, physicist. Not much is known about him because he didn't live in America. Einstein is a lot more known, but his contributions to science were not any less than Einstein's. And he actually came up first time with the Big Bang theory, where he said that there was a cosmic egg. He described a cosmic egg, and that's exactly what's mentioned in our scriptures, the Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, the cosmic egg. So the exact same language is used by this prominent scientist who was in Europe, and he described this Big Bang, and he said from this compacted egg, there was a big bang, and they say the bang occurred because there was a very powerful laser beam that penetrated to the core of this egg, and boom, there was an explosion, and the universe came out of that little thing. The entire world, all these suns and all these stars, everything started in this small little egg, which was how, and then who could have created that, and how, and where did that energy come from, that laser light or whatever? It was, of course, million times powerful than laser. And he said, this Lemaitre said that even today the universe is expanding. It's not stationary. It's not that the stars are there and everything is growing, expanding. And in the beginning, even Einstein did not believe his theories, and a lot of scientists criticized him. But in the end, when these studies were confirmed, he was found that he was 100% right. So the point is that religion and science, or spirituality and science, both ultimately come to the same truth. And that is that there is a substratum, there is a basis on which this universe, and this power we see in the Big Bang, but you also see in the seed. Think about it, this huge acorn tree, huge tree. How does it start? It starts as a small little seed you put in the ground. And then that little shoot comes out from there. And what force it has to break through the earth. It breaks through that earth, which is like 6-8 inches deep. You need, heavy equipment. And this tiny little plant is able to break through that seed, come out of the earth, and then ultimately become this huge tree. So all that shows that there is a tremendous power in this celestial being that we call God as Brahman. And that's what he's telling us, that I see everything you and everybody, all the three worlds are fearful. When he says all the three worlds are fearful, that means I also am fearful. And we'll talk about that a little more later on. Because what happens is that when everybody's fearful, then I also get fearful. When the whole surroundings are fearful, Arjuna also is afraid, because he's seeing something which is not only wondrous, but it is also the other form of the Lord, the other root. It's like, kids say everybody is going to the movies, why not me? Or we say everybody is buying a new car, why not me? Everybody is buying a new big house in Seven Oaks, why not me? But we don't say everybody is going to Bhagavad Gita class, why not me? That is that is what we should say. So that's what Arjuna is saying. The whole world is afraid, and so am I. I am also afraid, and we'll talk about his fear in the next verse, and so on. Verse number 21. Amihi tvam surasangha vishanti.
Amihi tvam surasanga vishanti.
Kechid bhita pranjalayo grinanti.
Kechid bhita pranjalayo grinanti.
Swasti tyuktva maharshi siddha sangaha.
Swasti tyuktva maharshi siddha sangaha.
Stuvanti tvam stutibhih pushkalabhihi.
Stuvanti tvam stutibhih pushkalabhihi.
Together. Amihit tvam surasangha vishanti. Kechid bhita pranjalayo grinanti. Swasti tyuktva maharshi siddha sanghaha. Stuvanti tvam stutibhih pushkalabhihi. So Ami, he said, these, indeed, he means indeed. When you want to give more emphasis, you use he. Tvam means you, but here it means in you. In you is understood. Sura Sangha Vishanti. Sura Sangha means all the gods, and gods, by that he also meant the kings, the soldiers. So Sura Sangha Vishanti, they are entering into you. And Kechid, and some of these gods, some of these beings, Bhita, being fearful, Pranjalayo Grananti, with folded arms, they are singing your glories. And then there is a third group. So one is entering and dying in the burning fire. We'll see the fire next in the next verse. He mentioned that a little bit, but he'll mention that before. So some of them are entering you and perishing. Some of them are fearful, and they are sitting with folded arms. Oh, please forgive us. Please save us. Please save us. I don't want to go. I don't want to die. And then there is the third group. Swasti iti uktva maharshi siddha sangaha. Maharshis and siddhas, these great wise people, these sages and mahatmas, they're said to be 18,000, these great realized masters. Siddha Sangaha, these collection of siddhas, swasti iti uktva. They say everything is well, don't be afraid, everything is well, even though they know that they are also going to perish in this form of the Lord, but they say swasti iti, everything is fine. And what are they doing? Stuvanti tvam, they are praising you, singing your glories. How? Stuti bhihi pushkalabhihi, by beautiful hymns, divine hymns, they are praising you. So we see that there are three kinds of people in this world. So the first kind, as we said, are people who don't even know, they don't even think about death. They just keep on doing whatever. They say, you should at least think, your time, it's okay. I have a long time to live. I don't know. It's okay. Don't need to worry. So they have no idea, nothing. And they just live their life, how pure maja karo, enjoy life, and they are gone. So that is certain, quite a few percentage of people are those. Then there are some who are fearful. They say, you know what, death is coming. I'm getting old. My hair is turning gray. My back hurts, and I have arthritis, and I am forgetful. I don't know what will happen. I'm going to die. Oh God, I don't want to die. And so they will do everything. They'll go get transplant. They'll go get this, go get that, go get plastic surgery, anything and everything, new heart, new lungs, new knees, new everything. Why? I don't want to die. I want to forever stay young. And those are the fearful ones. And majority of us come in that category, that we are afraid of death. Some don't even know. Some are fearful. Oh God, save me. I don't want to die. Even till the last minute, even when they know that nothing can be saved, they are in terminal stage, they will say, I want to go to Mayo Clinic. I want to go to, Harvard and get better treatment. They say nothing can be done. No, I want to go to allopathy or Ayurveda or homeopathy. So these people are not ready to accept death because death is inevitable. But there are a few great souls, these Mahatmas, who say all is well. Whatever is happening is for the good. And they can foresee that, yes, there is this major catastrophe going to come. A lot of thousands of people will die in this war. But this will be the basis of a new creation, a better world, because a lot of the evil kings and the Kauravas and all were killed in this war. And India prospered, did better after that. And good changes are happening, they are coming. And these are the people who gave us things like Purush Suktam, Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha, all these beautiful hymns, or Rudra Suktam or Narayana Suktam. So all these beautiful hymns in praise of God, they are chanting and they are reassuring us that don't worry, everything will be okay, everything is fine. So the purpose of this is not to watch as a movie, okay, there are three kinds of people, but where do I fit into this? Which category am I? Am I in the first category where I don't even think about death and I just do whatever I want? Or am I fearful? The idea is slowly we should move to the third one. And that idea is that whatever is happening is for the good. There is a higher power who is running this universe. And wherever I have been placed is the right place for me to be at this time. Whatever is happening, even good or bad, even some discomfort, even everything is for the good. Swasti iti uktva, swasti, it's all well. And one has to surrender and not find any fault. See, our problem is that we keep finding fault. Are ye theek nahi hai, wo theek nahi hai, this is wrong and that is wrong. And we're always complaining, oh, why is it so hot? Or why is it so cold? Or why is this? Or why is the government like that? Why is it Republican? That Republicans are saying why it is Democrat. So we are constantly complaining, finding faults, but they say just be fine with whatever is. Everything is good, and just does not mean that you don't try to do good or improve yourself or improve the world. But at the end of the day, there should be no complaint. There should be an acceptance and there should be a surrender. Bhagwan, you know what you're doing. See, what we try to do is we say, God, you haven't done a good enough job. Let me fix things. God, you are doing fine. I accept it 100%. I do the best I can, whatever abilities I have. But at the end of the day, everything is good. Swasti iti uktva. This is a very, if anything you can take from this class, just take this one message that whatever is happening is good, and stop complaining. Stop finding fault in God's creation. Stop finding fault in God's world. Stop finding fault in people's behaviors, because everything is good. And whoever is in my life is there for a particular purpose. Whatever is message is being given to me is all for my improvement. So have this attitude of surrender and attitude of gratitude that whatever is happening is good and there is nothing wrong with God's creation. And whatever I can do, I do my best. But at the end of the day, I accept whatever is good. Talking about complaints, there was this grandfather who was playing with his grandson on the beach. And the grandson was a little boy, maybe about 4 or 5 years old. And he went too close to the water. And suddenly a big wave came and pulled him inside, and he was going to be drowned. So the grandfather starts praying, "Oh God, please save him, please save him. Oh, I don't want my grandson to die. What will my son tell me? Blah, blah." And suddenly another wave comes and the boy is thrown back onto the beach and he goes and hugs him. "Oh, he's fine, he's healthy, nothing happened." And then he looks down and he looks up and he says, "Yeah, he had a hat. Where is his hat?" Still complaining. Uska hat kidhar hai? So, so that is how we are. We don't look at what is good and we always find what is bad. So they say, look at the positive, look at this beauty and stop criticizing, stop complaining. That is the message from this particular verse. Let us go to verse number 22. Rudraditya vasavo ye cha sadhyaha.
Rudraditya vasavo ye cha sadhyaha.
Vishveshvinau marutaschoshmapascha.
Vishveshvinau marutaschoshmapascha.
Gandharva yakshasura siddha sanghaha.
Gandharvayakshasura-siddha Sanghaha
Vikshante tvam vismitaschaiva sarve.
Vikshante Tvam Vismitaschaiva Sarve.
Together, Rudraditya vasavo ye cha sadhyaha. Vishveshvinau marutaschoshmapascha. Gandharva yakshasura siddha sanghaha. Vikshante tvam vismitaschaiva sarve. In this verse, Arjuna is describing all the divine beings, all the divine celestial beings that he's seeing. So Rudra, some of them we have talked before. Rudras are the gods of destruction. Adityas are the sons of Aditi, children of Aditi. Aditi is said to be the mother of God and demons. So his children, and among his children was Indra, was her son, and also Vamana avatar, Vishnu's avatar. So Vishnu, that's why in the 10th chapter, Bhagavan says, Aditya Nam Aham Vishnuhu. I am the Vishnu among the sons of Aditi. So Aditya. Vasavas are the gods, of the seasons, Vasus. That's why in the 10th chapter he says, Vasunam Pavakaha. I am the fire among the gods of all the seasons. So Vasus are the seasons. We have talked about that. Then he says Sadhya. What are Sadhyas? Sadhyas are celestial beings that convey our prayers. So when you offer yagna, Om Indrai Namamaha, then that prayer will be carried to Indra. Om Sri Vishnave Namaha, then it will go to Vishnu. So these are the messengers, Sadhyas. They are like the UPS or FedEx. Then he says Vishwas. Vishwas are beings that represent good values like truth, forgiveness, compassion. So those are the Vishwa Devas. Then Ashwinavs. Ashwinavs we talked last week. They are the gods of the dawn and the dusk. So the sunrise and the sunset, Ashwinav. Maruta, we mentioned last week, they are the gods of the wind. Ushma Pascha, that is a very interesting word. Ushma Pascha, cha means and. Ushma Pascha means those who drink hot. So it is said that Ushma Pashas are our Pitrus, our ancestors. And when we do the Shraddha for our ancestors, they say you have to offer hot food because the steam that rises, the subtle steam that rises, is absorbed by these devas. So the gods get the subtle aspect of food. So even when you offer food to God, the subtle aspect of it, which is not visible to us, is taken by God as prasad, and the visible aspect is taken by us as prasad. So even the food, when you offer, the subtle aspect goes to God. It's not that he eats, but the subtle aspect is offered to him. The gross aspect we eat, and then what is not required is eliminated. Also, in another place, they had said that in the food, the subtle aspect is not only goes to God, but makes the mind and intellect. The gross part makes our muscles and bones, and then what is not digested is excreted. So the idea is that when a mother is cooking or whoever is cooking, you should cook with the idea that I am cooking for my children, for my spouse, or for God. And so before cooking, one should offer a little prayer to God. Oh God, I am cooking for you, I'm cooking for children. So that the subtle aspect that goes to the mind and intellect should bless that person. That's why it is very important when we are making food to do it with an attitude of prayer, because then that subtle aspect of, and even for us to eat, if we want our mind and intellect to be good, one has to pray before cooking so that the subtle aspect may make the mind and intellect better. So Ushma Pasha is those who, our ancestors, our Pitrus, who get the subtle aspect of the puja. Gandharvas are the celestial musicians. They are the musicians that play in wherever there is a performance going on. There are multiple heavens, and wherever there is a performance, Urvashi is dancing, or any of these apsaras are dancing, then they go to perform, or there is a musical concert required. So they have these celestial planes, and they travel from heaven to heaven. They're like wandering musicians, and they are available wherever you are required. So they are called Gandharvas. So in heaven, they all the time have music and fun. So those who enjoy singing and then do good deeds, so you can listen to good music from the Gandharvas. Yakshas are the deities of nature, and among the highest was Kubera. So these are the deities of nature. And Kubera is the god of wealth, but in our Puranas, he's described as being very ugly and very short and very, very, very obese, really fat and very short, big protuberant eyes, short little legs, very ugly looking creature, but he's carrying a pot of gold and a club to protect the gold. So our rishis actually look down on wealth. That's why the god of wealth is shown to be a very horrible creature. But anyway, so those are the yakshas. Then asuras. Asuras, will talk about that, what we mean. And Siddha Sangaha. Siddha Sangaha means the collection of siddhas. Siddhas again means great masters, or great sages. They are all vikshante tvam. They are looking at you. Vismita, they are all wondered. Chaiva sarve, oh, what is happening? What is this horrible, this tremendous big form that we are seeing? It is indescribable. So in this, he is not only seeing all the divine forms, but he's also seeing asuras, he's also seeing rakshasas, he's seeing the demons. So the point that we need to make in this is that in Hinduism, God is not only, oh, everything good is God, and in other faiths, they say there is God and then there is devil. So there are two parties and they are equal. Devil is as strong as God, and all the good people are with God and the evil people are with the devil. And when somebody does something wrong, he says, the devil made me do it. That way he can escape. It's not my fault, the devil. So there is this two-party system, and they're all the time fighting gods. And what our scripture said, there is only one. If there was two, then God would not be all powerful. He would not be Sarva Shaktiman. He would not be all pervading. If we say God is all pervading, then evil is also in him as much as good is. It's not that there is only good and there is not evil. Everything is God. Good is God, evil is God, nice people are God, child molesters are God, pedophiles are God. Of course, their actions, we are not saying that their actions are divine. They also have God in them, but because of wrong vasanas, because of wrong desires, because of wrong tendencies, people commit wrong deeds because God has given us the freedom. See, God, up to animals, they don't have a choice. A lion, a tiger, a monkey does not have a choice. But humans have been given freedom. That's why God said, I made man in my own image. That's what the Bible says, that God made man in his own image. So he made us to have the potential of becoming like him. And he gave us the freedom. But what we did, we misused the freedom and did all the wrong things. And then, of course, there is a law of karma by which we will face the consequences of that. But the point is that everything is him. Everything is that, not even him, because again, you are making it male. That consciousness is everywhere. Everything is that. And that's what Arjuna says. And he says, they are all watching you with wonder and with fear. Why is Arjuna describing all these? Because he was at that time, Vedic time, these were the teachings. These were the gods that were worshipped. And they had mentioned all these. Nowadays, we don't hear about who was Rudras or Adityas or Marutas, except those who are studying Sanskrit. So it was at that time. So that's why Arjuna says, they are all watching you, Vismita, wonder and amazed. And now starts the horror movie. Now starts the horror show. Verse number 23. Rupam mahatte bahuvaktra netram.
Rupam mahate bahuvaktra netram.
Mahabaho bahubahu rupadam.
Mahabaho bahubahu rupadam.
Bahudaram bahudam strakaralam.
Bahudaram bahudram strakaralam.
Drishtva loka pravyatitastathaham.
Dristva loka pravyatitastathaham.
Together. Rupam mahatte bahuvaktra netram. Mahabaho bahubahu rupadam. Bahudaram bahudam strakaralam. Drishtva loka pravyatitastathaham. Rupam mahat, this huge mahat, this big form, Rupam te of yours. And what does it have? Bahuvaktra netram, many mouths, many eyes. And O Mahabaho, O one with very mighty arms, O Sri Krishna, Bahu Bahu Uru Padam. Bahu means arms, many arms. Uru means thighs. Padam means feet. So in this form, I see lots of eyes, lots of faces, lots of hands, feet, thighs. I see all that. And Bahudaram, and many stomachs. And then now he says, Bahudam Strakaralam. And I see these huge teeth, these fangs of yours that are protruding from this big mouth. There are these horrible teeth coming out. What is the purpose? He says, Drishtva lokaha. Seeing this, Drishtva, having seen this, all lokaha, all world, all people, here loka means all people, pravathita, they are frightened. Tatha aham, and I am frightened too. So what they say that this 11th chapter has some of the most beautiful poetry and this wonderful chanting. By chanting this, you use your throat, your tongue, your palate, your lips. And not only that, but chanting this Bhagavad Gita, but especially the 11th chapter, is very purifying. That's why they say Parayana, Parayana of the whole Bhagavad Gita should be done. That's what we do on Gita Jayanti once a year. We do Parayana where we chant all the 700 mantras. So chanting is not only good for your lungs, it's good for your speech, but also purifies your mind. That's why Parayana, that's why a lot of faiths, like in Sikh, they do of the Guru Granth Sahib. In the Pranami faith, they do of the, the Bani, where they will gather it and they will do Akhand Parayana, where they will sit for like 40 hours and continuously chant all the entire scripture, the entire holy book, and they do it in 2 2 hour segment. One chants for 1 hour, then somebody 2 hours, and day and night the chanting goes on. And these are and they do that on special occasions. So Parayana or chanting of these scriptures is very purifying, not only for the individual, but for the atmosphere, creates pure vibrations. So that's why they say chanting of this mantras, of these shlokas, is very good. And it can be anything. You can chant Gayatri mantra. One you can just chant, but if you chant knowing the meaning, then it's even better. But even if you don't know the meaning, just pick up a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita and chant. And that's what we do Monday evening, 8 to 9. We are doing chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita. We do have a Gita chanting class. So that's the idea, that chanting of these mantras or these shlokas, it's very beneficial. So Rupam Mahatte Bahuvaktra. So in your form, I see all eyes, all faces. The idea is not that in one form there are many mouths, but all mouths are yours, all eyes are yours, all faces are yours, all stomachs are yours, or hands, feet, everything is you and you alone. So it's not localized. God is not localized to the temple or to heaven or to Vaikuntha for Vishnu Bhaktas or for Kailash, for Shiva Bhaktas, but everything is that totality, but it is indescribable. That's what Arjuna is saying. It's like electricity. You say, what is electricity? All bulbs are electricity. A small little, your night light is electricity. A huge light that you see in a stadium is electricity. That big light you see in the pyramid, Luxor at Las Vegas, all lights are electricity. All heat, all heaters, all air conditioners, everything is electricity manifesting in different forms. So that is the idea, that not only all good, but all bad, all hands, feet, minds, brains, everything is you. But slowly what it is shifting is God is not only good, but he's also the annihilator. So far we think God is only good, the creator and sustainer, but he's also the destroyer. It is also the world has to have a continuous change. There has to be birth and there has to be death. Because if there was no death, there would be no place for us. Like if an old building is destroyed, do we cry? No, because we know that when the old building is destroyed, a new building, a skyscraper will come up, a brand new building. So death and birth are continuous cycles that go on, and one has to see that. That's why we have the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, so the creator, sustainer, and then Lord Shiva. The word Shiva means auspicious. So even though he is God of annihilation, he is considered to be auspicious because it is a creative destruction. That's why worshipping Lord Shiva is said to be very purifying. In fact, in Sadarshanam, there's a beautiful verse. I think the ladies did it in their Tuesday group. Mrityunjayam mrityubhyashritanam aham matir mrityumupaiti purvam atha swabhavatam riteshu teshu katham punar mrityu vakashah. So Raman Maharishi says, Mrityunjayam. Who is Mrityunjayam? Lord Shiva is one of his name is Mrityunjayam because he has conquered death. So Mrityu bhi ashritanam. So people like us who are afraid of death, say go to the refuge of Lord Shiva. Ashrita, go for refuge for the Lord. What will happen when we surrender to God? Aham mati mrityum upaiti purvam. What will die? You will not perish, but your ego, that I, this body, mind, intellect, this individuality will perish. this idea that I am this limited, useless being, and I am, going to die, and I am suffering, all that ego will go away. And then what will happen? Ata swabhavat amriteshu teshu. And then you will realize your immortal nature. Katham punar mrityu dhiyo vakasha. Then there is no fear of death, because then there is no death. I cannot perish. My body will perish, but I am immortal. And how does that happen? By surrendering to the Mrityunjayam, to that immortal God. And so that's why, of course, for Shiva Bhaktas, it can be Shiva. For Vishnu Bhaktas, it can be Vishnu, or Sri Krishna, or Ram, or Mother Durga, or whatever. But the idea is that when you surrender to that immortal being, then you realize your own immortal nature. And that is what the essence of all the Vedic scriptures is, to tell us that you are indeed immortal and realize your immortal nature. So that is what is the message of this. And do not be afraid of death, because death is definitely coming to everybody. Death is as auspicious as birth. We say, no, what are you saying? A new child being born and one perishing? Yes, they are all one. That is one continuous cycle. Celebrate both. Birth and death are equal. There is no difference. But when we get so attached to our body, my possessions, if I die, I have to leave my family and my house and my bank balance and my 401k, I work my whole life to collect. Nothing will go with you. Everything will stay here. So stop holding on to material things and hold on to the feet of the Lord. Mrityunjayam, O Bhagwan, you are the one. You can only take me, and that alone will go with you. All the prayers you have done, the bhakti and the good karmas and the right knowledge, that is what will go with you. We'll do the last verse, verse number 24. Nabhasprisham deeptamaneka varnam.
Nabhasprishyam diptamaneka varnam.
Vyatananam deepta vishala netram.
Vyatananam dipta vishala netram.
Drishtva hitvam pravyatitantaratma.
Drishtva hi tvam privyatitantaratma.
Dhritim na vindami shamancha Vishno.
Dhritim na vindami shamancha Vishnu.
Together. Nabhasprisham deeptamaneka varnam. Vyatananam deepta vishala netram. Drishtva hitvam pravyatitantaratma. Dhritim na vindami shamancha Vishno. So he says, Nabhasprisham, your form extends up to the sky. It is touching even the space. Deeptam aneka varnam, and it is the fiery form of different colors. I see fire coming out of you, and your mouth is wide open, and there is fire coming out of your mouth. And deepta vishala netram, and from your eyes I can see these big eyes, fire coming out of your eyes. And then he says, Dishtva, and seeing this Pravyatthita antaratma, and I am so scared. And what is happening to me? Dhritim na vindami, and I don't have any courage and no shama, no peace. O Vishnu, O Vishnu. Vishnu means the all-pervading consciousness. O Bhagwan, you are infinite, you are everywhere, and I see fire coming out. So slowly, Bhagwan is showing him the Rudra Rupa, his terrible form. Because God is not only everything, as we said, the creator, sustainer, but also the annihilator. And Arjuna is now said, I didn't sign up for that. In the 10th chapter, you didn't tell me. You said, I am the mountain, I am the river, I am the horse. And now I didn't come for this horror movie. I came for some entertainment. I thought, oh, Bhagavan will show me his beautiful form. Maja aa jayega, then I will go. He said, I never, it's like teenagers, they get together for sleep over. They're 10, 12, 13 years old. And they say, we want to rent horror movies. And they will rent horror movies and watch them for all night. And then at night, they can't sleep. Why? Because they are so scared that this monster or ghost will come. So that is what is happening to Arjuna. And he says, I have lost my patience. I cannot watch this because this is not what I was expecting. See, what happens is that, and then what he says, the world is scared and I am also scared. So he said, world is scared loudly, and then I am also scared. He says softly. Why? Because he was a great warrior. He had fought so many wars and he had seen so much death. And for him to admit that he's afraid is difficult, like for a great warrior. And not only that, but why does he say the whole world is scared and so am I? Because how we are, we connect that to the world. Like if I'm happy and I see rain falling, we say, look, even the heavens are blessing me. I'm so happy. And then when I'm sad and rain falls, we say, oh, even God is crying because so what we do is we transfer our emotions to the whole world, that the whole world is happy. When I'm happy, everything is good. And when I'm sad, everything is sad. So that is what Arjuna is doing. He's transferring his emotions to the whole world. And he's seeing a form of God which he was not expecting. See, he thought that everything will be good and it will be fun. But the idea is that God is multifaceted. You cannot localize him you cannot put him in one box. Okay, but you only stay here as a creator, or you're only goodness, compassion, patience. Yeah, those are his qualities. But even the evil people are in him too. There is no good and evil as far as there are. Next time I talk, I'll tell you a story about that. But how everything is God, and it is impossible for us to localize. This is God and this is not God. Everything is God. And that's what these saints and Mahatmas are able to love and forgive even people who have persecuted them. We see in the lives of saints that they try to give us wisdom, but what do? We persecute them. Any saints, look at majority of saints, look at Mirabai, look at Tukaram, look at Jesus, look at Buddha, all of them, we mistreated them. Why? Because they told us the truth and they tried to wake us up that stop doing this foolishness that you have been doing all these years. Even Swami Chinmayananda, when he first started teaching, he met so much opposition. People wouldn't give him a place to stay, wouldn't give him a hall to give lectures. So that is what is the problem, and that's what we see in these shlokas. And next week we'll continue seeing more, because Bhagavan says, wait, show is not over yet. Abhi baki hai, movie abhi baki hai. I am not done. So don't think that, we'll see even more interesting verses next week. So as Yash said, in psychology, we call it counter-transference, where I transfer my qualities onto others. Very true. That makes a lot of sense. So that is whatever Arjuna is feeling, he's transferring it to the entire universe. But actually, all of them were afraid. Even the celestial beings, they had never seen this form of the God. Even the Devas, even Indra, and even all the Sadhyas and all the Vasavas and Marutas and all these celestial beings, it was a frightening experience for everybody to see this form. So we are blessed that, it's there in the Bhagavad Gita. So the idea is that we should also, in our mind, when we are reading these verses, visualize this cosmic form of God, which is all pervading. And it's a very, very beautiful chapter, even though we think there is repetition, but there is so much material in this. And it's a very beautiful chapter to chant. And also majority of it is done in the other meter, so that it shows the importance of this chapter. So we'll end here. It's just we have time. If anybody has any questions, anything to add.
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You talked about being grateful, to everything's going to be okay. That's
Yes.
a great sign we see in people's yards. But does that mean that we should be grateful for the horrible?
Coronavirus.
No. That's just that went through my mind. But
No, we should be grateful for a lot of good things have happened due to the coronavirus. I mean, we don't have time to talk about it, but it has not been all bad. Lot of good things have come out of this. Lot of good things. People have stopped traveling, unnecessarily cruising, unnecessarily, commuting. Lot of things. I mean, lot of good things will come out. Yes, people will die, but people are destined to die anyway. People will die. If they didn't die of coronavirus, they would have died of something else. That's what Krishna tells Arjuna, that these people are already dead. Either you kill them or I'll find somebody else. The time has already come. Ayyev nihata purvam eva, he will say it in this nimitta matram. So everything that is happening is good. Yes.
Well, do you think that one of the reasons why all these different hosts of beings were terrified was because they were not grateful? Because they didn't have the courage?
Well, I think because the form was so horrible at that moment, it was hard for them to, only the realized masters, they knew. They were the only ones who were grateful. Majority of the people were not, because they didn't have that wisdom of these 18,000 great sages. Yes. So they didn't have, and like you and I, we don't have it. If we didn't have Swami Chinmayananda to give us this commentary, we would not. So that's what they say, you should be grateful for everything. Yes, exactly. They didn't. That's what again Sri Krishna will say at the end of the chapter, that this form I have shown you has not been seen by anybody else. By anybody else means the great Mahatmas have, but aside from them, even the gods in heaven had not seen this form. Yes. That is true. That's why they were terrified. And so was, actually we would have been too if we had seen that form with fire coming out, and there will be more descriptions of next week of what happened once the fire came out and the mouths were open. There'll be a lot more about that. Yes. One should be grateful. And if you're not, then you haven't understood God. That's true. If you're terrified and if you're not grateful, that's what I said. We should be like the third one. The third group, who they also know they are going to perish, the great sages and Mahatmas, but they bless the world, and they say everything is good. Whatever is happening is good. Yes.
That might be hard for doctors, don't you think?
No, see, again, doctors in the world, you have to do whatever job you are assigned to do. Obviously, if you have been placed as a teacher, your job is to teach. If you have been placed as a doctor, your job is to give medicine. If you have been placed as a carpenter, your job is to make furniture. So you do whatever you are assigned to do, but do it as a service to God without I and my. And then the patient that is in front of me is God too. So I do my best to make him well. If the patient gets well, it's God's grace. And if by some chance patient has end-stage cancer, by the time he comes to me and he perishes, that was also God's wish, or that was his prarabdha. Yes. So you do whatever. Furniture, I won't say, why should I make good furniture? It's nothing. No, everything, whatever you're making shoes, you make shoes. Whatever job, wherever God has placed you, that's another thing. Wherever I have been placed is the right place for me to be at this time. I was a doctor all these years. That was a right place. As of 1st March, I am no longer a doctor. I have closed my practice. So that was meant for me, I guess.
Gurudev says, not everybody can do big things, but do everything in a big way.
Yeah, see,
That is very
right.
good.
So not everybody can do big things, but whatever things you are doing, do it in a big way.
Yeah.
Do it as a service to God.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's a very nice question. Thank you. Yeah, Lata.
One question. You said accept what your circumstances are, how things are. I tell you, Rasik always used to tell me that if that road is not sort of a rough road, in India we will accept that. Okay, that's what it is. In USA, they would say, well, how can I fix it so that it gets a little smoother?
Right.
Where is that cross line? How
That's
much? And that's where the inventions have come from US. They do not accept, they challenge.
Yes.
And that's from the day he came to this country, he has always had that respect for the American way,
Right.
so to say.
But that's, see,
Please.
there is a difference between Purushartha and destiny. So there is certain thing called destiny, and that is certain thing called free will. So humans have a free will, have Purushartha, to do the best we can under the circumstances. So if you are in India, and if the road is that, you can't do much about it. Even here, not every road is good. There are some roads that are broken. You can complain to the city, you can call them. We're not saying that you accept bad roads or you accept, if you are poor, you just stay lazy and don't work. We're not saying that. You do the best you can under the circumstances wherever you are. You do your best to make this world a better place.
Mhm.
Whatever I can do, I can do. But the point is that if you're only going to complain and not do anything to fix it, that is where the problem is, that, oh, I can't change it, but I don't do anything to change it. I just sit in my house and complain. If you can get it better, you can call the city council and get the road fixed. Very good. Or if nothing happens, you yourself can get a few people together and do it. We are not saying that you don't try to fix things, but at the end of the day, you have to know what I can do and what I cannot do. And then see everything as God, and without complaint, without criticism. It does not mean that you don't try to make yourself healthier, don't try to be successful. People make big factories and big companies. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had Google, and we wouldn't have had Microsoft and Facebook and Reliance and all these. A lot of good things are happening. So people are doing a lot of good work. Scientists, engineers, all these different discoveries, inventions. Those are all humans. We are landing on Mars and these planes. So we are not saying that the point of the matter is that ultimately everything is happening according to a divine plan. And once we understand that, then the ego goes away. The idea that I am doing it, it is God working through me, and do the best I can to make the world a better place. That's what one place, I think Gurudev had said, that not all of us can be like the sun, but we can be a little lamp. So we cannot be the sun like Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, or we cannot be like Mahatma Gandhi, or we cannot be like Jesus or Buddha. But in my own community, in my own neighborhood, at least I can be a little lamp, giving some guidance to people and helping, to make the world a better place. So do the best you can, but without complaint, without criticism, without finding fault, and doing the best I can to make the world a better place. Gurudev did so much,
See, but the science basis is not to accept the things the way they are.
Yes.
What can we do differently about it? So how
Yes.
can it be in sync with the spirituality? Tell me.
See, spirituality does not say that you should not make things better. Spirituality, in our ancient Sanskrit, if you study, 12,000 BC, 10,000 BC, they had everything. They had running toilets, they had canals, they had planes, they had weapons. So the point is that spirituality is not against science. I just said that, this Lemaitre was a great scientist, and Einstein and all. Spirituality and science, of course, has made great contributions. But what we are saying is that do not get so caught in only doing material things and forget the spiritual aspect of it. Definitely, science has a great role to play, and we owe the great gratitude. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to drive our cars. If Henry Ford hadn't made the first car, we would still be walking. Or if the first planes hadn't been made by the Wright brothers, we would still not be able to go. So science has made great inventions, great discoveries, antibiotics and all the diseases are being conquered and so on. But the point is that we get so focused on science that we forget spirituality. And ultimately, the goal of every human being is to go towards spirituality. Otherwise, your life will be a waste. No matter how much achievements you have made in the scientific field, you may be the best scientist, you may be the richest man, you may have made the biggest company, but if you have not known your true nature, your life is a waste. Until you have progressed spirituality, your whole life is a waste. So the most important thing in life is spirituality. We're not discounting the inventions of science. We're not saying that science has not contributed. Science has contributed a lot, but we have greater contribution is by these great Mahatmas, by Ved Vyas ji, and who gave us this Mahabharata and the Gita, and the Valmiki who gave us Ramayana. So those contributions are lasting. This Bhagavad Gita was told more than 5,000 years ago.
Yeah,
we are
that's
still
true.
studying it. Ramayana was even before that, even several thousand years before. So this eternal Sanatan wisdom is what we are trying to study today. Of course, we have to study science. Our children, our doctors, engineers, scientists, they have to do all whatever they are doing in their fields. But the idea is that at least to not forget our spiritual side, and ultimately that is more important. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not that science is not important, but spirituality is more important than science, and we forget that. So that's what.
Thank you.
I also worked as a doctor for 40 years. So
Yeah. You are a scientist.
yeah. So it's not that, it's not that.
And so did who came up with the vaccines for coronavirus so fast?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the virus, corona vaccines, of course, within 1 year they can.
They said, don't forget God who is behind all that.
Yeah, that's what Nehru is saying. Doing all the science, don't forget God who is behind you. Every invention, it is God who is behind him. Every science, every achievement, any achievement we cannot accomplish without God. Even I cannot lift my finger without God. How many muscles, how many nerves, and I can't take a single breath without God. Even my heart will not beat even one more. Today, if my time is up, the heart will stop. So everything is happening because of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I make a point?
Thanks.
Could I make a point, Anilji?
Yeah, sure, Pankaj. Go ahead, please.
I think science, the difference here between spirituality and science is experimentation, making a hypothesis, proving it right, existence of elements, and then we come out with a deduction, inference, and okay, this is right, this is wrong, existence of elements, periodic tables, that kind of stuff. Science will explain the universe to some extent, the orbits, sun, planets revolving around the sun. We'll say, yes, how does it happen? Science will say, yes, magnetic fields, blah, blah, blah. But where did the magnetic field come from? Where did all these things originate from? Yes. That is, science will have difficulty explaining that. We all are studying about, the Big Bang theory and then the God particle and all these kind of things. Yes, but the origin of the whole thing, different people talk about different things. World came from atom, world came from, some beginning existence, blah. But that's where the limitation of science is. And spirituality is something which is beyond science. It does not take into account some faiths consist of, and they believe in like 5 elements, like earth, air, space, fire. But some faiths believe only 4 elements. They don't consider water as an element. So different faiths have different concepts, scientific beliefs. But I think spirituality is something above this. in a nutshell, I think.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you so much, Pankaj. That's it, because it takes us to the source, as Pankaj said. Where did it all start? Thank
Can
you.
I say something?
Yeah,
Can I
who's-
say something, Anilji?
Anji, go ahead, please.
Scientists discussed about their achievements and lately agreed that certain things they could not do, and they bowed on religion. That if religion would not have been, the creator would not have been, they would not have done anything.
Right. Yeah. So Moini auntie saying that ultimately, if God's power was not there, nothing we would have accomplished. No scientific accomplishment could happen without, as also Pankaj said, and that the origin of everything is that. And last week we had talked about how you can, go ultimately you reach that there has to be a higher power that is running the whole universe. Einstein and all the great scientists came to that conclusion.
Om na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agni tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati.
Om Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki jai.
आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की दिव्य रूप मूर्ति करुणा की आरती सद्गुरु की चरणों में उनके शांति समाये शरणागत की प्रांति मिटाए पाप ताप संताप हरण की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की वेद उपनिषद गीता गोकाया धर्म सनातन फिर से जगाया शुद्ध नीति प्रीति शंकर की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की सिद्ध पहाड़ी की तपोभूमि में नित्य विराजे गुरु हमारे भक्त हृदय आनंद शोट की आरती श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की आरती सद्गुरु की।
बोलिए श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय।
कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रिये वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृतेर्स्वभावा करोमि अद्य सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।
Everybody can take the arti. Thank you very much.